Well, good morning, everyone. Good to have you along. And, of course, I'm feeling healthier already just having Dr. Seagraves in the room. So he just brings that comforting presence. All right. Welcome once again to Health Talk. I'm Peter Christian. That's John King. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning.
How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. I got to enjoy the hailstorm live and up front at
I saw
Rose Hours parking lot.
I saw you with your handful of hailstones.
Yeah, it ripped all the petals off the flowers in the market. I hope they recover.
Oh, well.
Yeah, looks like we're in for some interesting days.
Yes, absolutely. But that's not what we're here to talk about right now. We have Dr. Stan Seagraves, who is an MD and hospitalist at Providence St. Patrick Hospital. Stan, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Of course, we have a history anyway because our kids went to school together, and they're now all in the medical profession. Some of them are anyway, right?
Correct. I have a couple of nurse daughters right now who keep me honest.
and in St. Bernard's, I understand.
Correct.
All right. Tell us a little bit about Stan Seagraves and how you got involved in medicine in the first place.
Well, I'm originally from Oregon. I trained in internal medicine back in the old days, in the old pre-hospitalist model, actually. And my wife and family and I moved out here in 1989, practiced at the Western Montana Clinic as an internist until 2008 when I switched over to my current position as a hospitalist. Although, as maybe we'll get a chance to elaborate later, like family physicians and internists, we're all were and continue to be hospitalists in the sense that we had experience practicing in the hospital. So I'm a 25-year guy here.
Now, what is a hospitalist? I can't even write this word without getting a red line under it on any kind of word processor. So I'm not even sure it's a real job. Why don't you tell us what it is?
It's sometimes it's a real job. Some of my partners would tell you that I don't have a real job because I'm down here on the radio while they're actually doing the work.
Everyone says that to us too.
They're healing the sick, and you're
Correct.
on the radio. Yeah.
Those of you who are listening, get after it. It's an awkward term. It's kind of a clunky term. So is internist, really, when you think about it. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but it's a descriptive term for a physician or a non-physician provider, so a PA, a nurse practitioner, who limits their practice to a hospital setting. So you could be a generalist hospitalist. You could be, in my case, an adult hospitalist, pediatric hospitalist. We have psychiatric hospitalists. In some larger hospitals, there are surgical hospitalists. So someone that's defined by where you're hanging out.
So do you have like a bumper sticker on your car that says, "I don't do home visits," or?
I do not have that sticker yet.
But is that basically the difference between a traditional doctor and a hospitalist? Just that you don't go out in the field? It's
that you don't have an office-based practice,
right.
And you spend your day working in the hospital and in your area of specialty.
Is it kind of a modern change to medicine?
It's about a 20-year-old specialty or so, probably the most rapidly growing specialty there's ever been. It's a little bit of a fake specialty in this sense that, like I referred to earlier, it's work I was doing before, but now I've narrowed my physical location and my time to inpatient work.
Now, before we got on the air, you had given me a really good example of what you do and kind of compared it to being a contractor. I was hoping you could give that example to the listeners out there because it gave me the best insight into what your job is really like.
At least for the generalist hospitalist, so whether this is a pediatrician or an adult medicine hospitalist, I think the best analogy is that of the general contractor. You need to know a little bit about a lot, I should say, and you can know a lot about some stuff too. But my point is, or I think the analogy works when you think about the fact that the general contractor needs to keep the project, if a patient can be a project in this metaphor, on track. You're juggling a lot of tests, a lot of medications, a lot of family dynamics, a lot of specialists, and your job is to keep all that going forward.
Now, are you restricted to a certain number of patients? Because I can just imagine if you've got, there's 150 people in a hospital and you're the, general hospitalist, that's a lot of dishes to keep, spinning.
Yes, we try to limit it to a reasonable amount of work just so you can do a good job.
Right.
On the other hand, unlike the office-based practitioner who can set a schedule and turn off the spigot, so to speak, the emergency room stays busy all the time, and patients come in. So we just need to kind of suck it up at times and get the work done. We try to keep a reasonable panel of patients so that we can give everybody the attention they need.
So how many hospitalists are there? You kind of described yourself as a general contractor. So is there someone over you and someone over them? Is it a big pyramid sort of formation here?
I like to think of us as being at the top of the heap, but no, we work we work in a collaborative way with the specialty colleagues. So it's really a team sport. It's not just the physician or the non-physician provider, but there are nurses and therapists and specialty physicians, and we're all in it together. There really isn't a strict pecking order. There's always historical pecking orders of sorts. We have a big group, though. We have 22 adult hospitalists, for example.
Oh, wow.
And a number of other pediatric hospitalists, psychiatric hospitalists, intensive care unit physicians, and so on.
So it sounds to me like when you, let's say I'm in the hospital and I'm just sick. I'm a sick guy, okay? I can't feel it. I can't stand up, whatever. And you come and you do your examinations and you figure, okay, this guy has a neurological disorder, all right? You know enough about that to say, okay, I'm going to call Dr. Beck or one of these other individuals. So you bring in a specialist to contact the patient with that particular problem.
Correct.
Okay.
So unlike, in fact, we were talking about this earlier, unlike the hospitalist model in Europe, in Australia, New Zealand as well, I think, where you came to the hospital with a neurologic or what was thought to be a neurological problem, you would not be admitted by your primary care provider there either. You would be admitted by the specialty service that's closest to what the emergency provider thinks may be wrong with you. There aren't really generalist hospitalists overseas. In any event, in the U.S., our job is to coordinate your care, figure out what specialty service you might need, and then to engage them in your care.
So in many ways, your specialty is diagnostics.
Correct.
It seems to me. That would
and treatment, I would say. Diagnostic and treatment, non-surgical diagnosis and therapies.
Okay. So what sort of things do you do in what we would think the traditional doctor would do? A lot of what we've talked about so far has been the ferreting of people to the specialist that has the skills that need to fix that problem. But if there isn't really a specialist, if it's a general problem, then you're hands-on?
That's it. We're it. So you might need a minor procedure. You might have a half dozen very complex chronic illnesses with dozens, sometimes literally dozens of medications that need to be juggled, and that's our baby to tackle that and to manage that.
I was going to ask you about that because personally, in my family, we've had some elderly folks. My wife's mom and dad both passed away, and both of them had several things that were going on at once, and both of them were at St. Patrick Hospital and had wonderful care, by the way. But there were lots of things going on, and there was a hospitalist there. There were eventually there were palliative folks involved, and so how do you blend all those things together to make sure that everything is seamless? And of course, that's the goal, is to make everything seamless. So,
well, the key is communication. I mean, that's sort of a little bit of a trite answer, but it's more important than ever now that we have care so fractionated. So whether it's me interfacing with their primary care doctor or their bevy of specialists, my job is, hospitals spend a lot of time on the phone. I'm trying to keep everybody on task.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, we're going to take a little break.
Yeah, I think we're getting ready for a break here. But when it comes to your job and the interactions with the other doctors, is there ever like a jurisdiction like you would see between like police forces and the FBI or something like that, where you're like, no, this is a general problem. No, it's a specialty problem.
Well, yeah, other than Jeff Fee maybe coming down and telling me what to do. No, there really isn't any hostility. And in a sense, it's the patient and their coordinating primary care provider, and really we are their primary care provider while they're hospitalized, that dictate the course of the treatment.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, come right back, continue our conversation with Dr. Stan Seagraves. You have a question, give us a call. 721-1290 is our number. This is Health Talk, sponsored by Providence Health and Services, Western Montana. Be right back. And even doctors can dance if they want to in this show. It's okay. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We won't tell, I promise. Dr. Stan Seagraves joining us this morning, hospitalist at Providence St. Patrick Hospital here on Health Talk. So we do have a caller on the line. Catherine, you're on with Dr. Seagraves. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning.
I wanted to ask you about continuity of care before and most especially after hospitalization. Do you follow patients in the community or into the community, whether or not there's another primary care physician?
That's a really great question, an important one too. It's one of the biggest vulnerabilities of the new hospitalist model is this handoff time, this voltage drop when patients leave the hospital. So electronic health records have made it easier to have this handoff, but we are really, really compulsive about calling the primary care provider, making sure that when you leave the hospital, that your out-of-hospital provider knows where things were left. Now, if someone does not have a physician on admission to the hospital, we, from the minute they hit the hospital, make efforts to connect them with a local clinic. So we really have an unwritten rule that you don't leave the hospital without an appointment having been made with the appropriate primary provider or specialist, because otherwise, that's bad for you, and you're going to be back in the hospital sooner.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for the call, Catherine.
Do you find electronic medical records fulfilling all the things you would hope that they would fill? I mean, as far as transferring the voltage, you just mentioned the voltage drop sometimes when there's a lack of communication. Hopefully that's not happening, right? So,
well, one answer would be no, but I think that was because our expectations were probably incorrect. The transition to electronic health records has been really hard for healthcare providers, meaning the change in workflow, the way we spend our days. On the other hand, there's a lot of things that we already take for granted in terms of availability of information, immediacy, that have made it a lot easier. For example, when a patient comes to our hospital from an outlying hospital who shares our electronic health record platform, I know things that before would have been dozens of faxes, hours on the phone, and you still wouldn't know what you want to know. So things are much better, not without a cost in terms of changes in the way people do their job.
Let me ask you, just if I can shift gears just a little bit. You and I were talking before the show started about the medical home concept and the fact that you said in the beginning of your practice you actually made some house calls and it was very fulfilling. You had a chance to meet people in their own environment, that sort of thing. That of course has shifted, and you say it may be shifting back toward that model a little bit later on, right?
Yes, I think that's the direction that we're heading, not only in palliative care, but maybe even, hopefully even in the primary care world ultimately. I think it's not only a better service for the patient, but a satisfying, a practice satisfier for the provider. So whereas the hospitalist might not be making those visits, of course, and in fact your primary care doctor might not be making those visits, there may be a team of physicians and other providers, nurses, mid-level providers who go from home to home to see, for example, but not the only example, the frail elderly at their home, save them a trip to the emergency room, save them a trip to the lab, and so on. So I think it's going to shift back, and the electronic health record actually makes some of that very easy, because now your giant electronic chart is on my laptop at your home.
Sure.
So you're not dealing mostly with the extreme specialty problems. You're not dealing with people that can walk up and go to their doctor, their primary care doctor. So are you mostly focused on chronic issues, things that are constantly keeping people sick?
Yeah, yes, and you could almost argue that the primary care doctor's office is oriented that way as well now. But if you meet a hospitalist, you usually have a wide range of pretty serious chronic illnesses. Unlike 20 years ago, where someone would check into the hospital literally to, quote, rule out cancer, unquote, and for a 7-day sort of leisurely evaluation. Those days are over, and if you're in the hospital, you are so sick that you can't be anywhere else. And so whether it's COPD or diabetes or advanced heart failure, on and on, we're dealing with people usually with an overlap of a bunch of serious illnesses.
Do you make the decision on whether or not someone gets screened or tested on one of the different devices that they have at the hospital? Whether or not they get like an MRI or, I mean, is that something that you go through, or do you go through a specialist for those decisions?
No, we make most of those calls ourselves, although if there's a discussion point around what would be the best test, certainly we would avail ourselves of the specialty colleagues, but we tend to run the diagnostic side of things and then turn up, for example, diagnoses or questions that then need specialty input. But we order the tests, whether they're imaging tests or laboratory tests.
So in the news, we hear a lot of a debate over, are hospitals testing too much to prevent from getting, people getting sued or whatever, or are we not testing enough? And I wanted to get your take on that whole debate.
You're talking to the son of a lawyer, and he and I argue about this pretty much every time we talk. there's no question, even though the literature's, I think, up in the air about it, there's no question that defensive medicine it plays into how we order tests and what we do. I see people who've had a dozen abdominal CAT scans over the course of 3 years at 4 hospitals for the same not yet sorted out abdominal complaint. It's kind of ridiculous, and you can't tell me that that's not defensive medicine in play. We tried to be mindful of it. The electronic health record has certainly helped get rid of some redundancies. In other words, I don't have to repeat a test because I can see that you just had it 3 weeks ago at another hospital. Absent that information, though, there's a lot of repetitive testing.
So that's helpful. It's preventing duplicative procedures.
Correct.
That's
big
good
advantage.
To know. That's very interesting.
Now, we're up against another break, and Dr. Stan Seagraves kind enough to join us this morning here on Health Talk, sponsored by Providence Health and Services of Western Montana. We have all 3 of our phone lines open. You have a question for this is a good doctor right here. So 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. 721-1290 is the number, 1-800-568-5309. This is Health Talk, and it's sponsored by Providence Health and Services, Western Montana. We're privileged to have with us in studio Dr. Stan Seagraves, who's a hospitalist at Providence St. Patrick Hospital. Go ahead, John.
So you were mentioning before we got on the air that this is only about a 20-year endeavor, this hospitalist. You know, as you sit at this juncture here, and we're moving on to into the future, what would you recommend that this job transition into? Where do you see it going? Where do you hope that it goes?
I think we're going to see more and more hospitalist subtypes. For example, as it gets harder and harder to run an office and be present in the hospital with very complicated patients, I think you're going to see surgical specialists go in this direction. Not that it hasn't already started, but I think you're going to see that more widespread. You could call it a fractionation of care or an increased specialization of care, but I think that's the direction it's going. And as communication gets better, and as people recognize this really is a team sport, not one doctor and one patient, then I think, and again, like I said, as we smooth out the communication gaps, I think it's going to be a better model.
And now, as you mentioned earlier, Australia, Europe, pretty much everywhere else in the world has a different system. Why do you think that is, and do you think this system that we have here is better?
Well, I don't know that it's better, although I'm inclined to think it's better to have a generalist coordinating your care, whether you're on the inpatient side as a hospitalized patient or whether you're in the office. The more specialty-oriented approach has some deficits. There's some efficiencies there, but for example, if you get admitted with a lung disease to a hospital in Melbourne, you are admitted by the lung doctor. But what if you also happen to have diabetes and congestive heart failure and a rare skin disorder? So you wind up with a big pile of specialty opinions there as well, and no central coordination. There is not a generalist coordinating your care. I think it's better to have a center point, although at times, you know, if you come to the hospital, and we were talking earlier, if you need your appendix out, let's just get your appendix out. You don't need the hospitalist. If you're otherwise well, a hospitalist helping coordinate that.
Yeah.
There are some places, though, where hospitalists literally admit and discharge every patient from the hospital. From a throughput, efficiency, very mechanical standpoint, I don't support that.
I remember several years ago when I put my hand on a snowblower, I didn't need a hospitalist. I needed a hand surgeon. You know?
Correct.
So I walked in and my hand was in a mess, and they said, "Okay, well, I think we know what you need."
Yeah. So what you don't need is a snowblower either.
Although
So
I do
basically,
have a shovel now.
there's
yeah.
2 tracks. You've got your emergency room track and your hospitalist track.
Yes, a patient. Most of the patients that we take care of have come through the emergency room. A few are directly admitted from their primary care provider's office. They begin their evaluation in the emergency room, and then when it's evident they need hospital care, the hospitalist steps in and takes it from there.
Do you think that the modernization of technology will make your job easier or will make it obsolete?
Artificial intelligence. I look forward to the day that artificial intelligence can answer a call at 2 a.m. I'm waiting for that. I don't think we'll ever be replaced. I think the nuances, the judgment, the experience, and the complexity are beyond the reasoning of any supercomputer just yet. But certainly there are a lot of diagnostic software packages out there that help you get to the answer more quickly.
We have a minute left in the program, and if you could just talk to young folks out there who are just going into, they want to get into medicine, why become a hospitalist?
Well, I think it's appealing in a number of ways. One of those is the schedule is not as taxing as the old model, which I did for 17 or 18 years, meaning trying to run your office and be present in the hospital and be available after hours. That is a burnout machine, if ever there was one. So it's appealing from the standpoint of being able to turn off your practice and concentrate on the rest of your life. At the same time, it's really exciting. There's lots of bells and whistles and toys to play with in the hospital.
And we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Seagraves. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, and that's going to do it for Health Talk. We will continue with Talkback at the top of the hour. Stay with us right here on KGVO AM and FM and newstalkkgvo.com. Hello? That's much better. Thank you, Billy. Welcome back. You're back just in time, by the way. All right.
Thank you, guys.
So, okay, that was genuinely weird.
Are we back?
I don't know what happened, John.
Man.
Somebody pushed the wrong button, man. You know, what am I going to do? Okay, but we are back, and we have a special guest here in the studio.
That's right. We have Jamie Jonkel. He's wildlife specialist for FWP Region 2. That'd be Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Region 2. So if you've ever had a mountain lion complaint or a bear in your backyard, this is probably one of the guys that you got called. In fact, I recently found out that you were involved in the now famous black bear trampoline incident.
The bouncing bear.
Yeah, the bouncing bear never seems to go away. Someone emails me or calls me about it just about once a week.
Really? That's interesting. So tell us of the things that you've seen. Well, what are the things that stick out in your mind as different? You've been doing this. Your dad did the same job, right?
Yeah, my dad worked on polar bears and black bears and grizzlies. So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time with Dad. And, then one thing led to another. I took on the same career. And, yeah, I've seen a lot of cool things in my life.
What strikes you as tell us some of the interesting things you've seen.
Well, humans are interesting, but wildlife are a lot more interesting. I mean, when you get out there in these wild areas, you see wildlife interacting. They interact just like we do. There's all sorts of social strife between species and within species, and yeah, you just see amazing things when you spend a lot of time out in the woods.
Now, do you think wildlife is more predictable than humans?
Well, yes, I do. Our human world is so new and so strange. I think people have trouble adapting to it, let alone wildlife.
And there's no politics or elections out in the front.
In a way, there is. There's quite a pecking order and a lot of politics out there in the wilds of wildlife. You bet.
So I wanted to talk to you and have you come on because we've had every spring. We get all these stories about bears and mountain lions coming in through town and people not expecting them or knowing that they're around and finally discovering that they're there when their trash gets raided or their bird feeder gets eaten or what have you. And I was kind of hoping, on one hand that you could give us some tips about how we should deal with this issue and just maybe give us a little bit of diagnosis on what the big predator situation is like in western Montana and in and around Missoula. So let's start with the story. We did a story, I believe we ran it today, maybe not, about mountain lions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That I was speaking with Vivica Krauser last week. And some people are hypothesizing that we have an increase in mountain lion sightings in the Missoula area because of deer running around. I was wondering if that's something you thought as well.
Well, yeah. Missoula is very, very unique. If you stand in the middle of the valley and take a little spin around you, it's obvious. We've got, 5 big valleys coming together, 6 big mountain ranges coming together. And when you look on Google Earth at Missoula, I mean, there's no place like that in the Rockies. And because of that, we've got all these sort of unique terrains and different aspects. Lots of wildlife. So just about every ridge you look at has got its own little herd of elk, its own bunch of deer, lions, bear, wolves, coyotes. And Missoula itself is got some of the primest habitats, right down here in the river bottoms. And so all our deer and all our elk and all our wildlife are slowly learning that, down on the edges where people live, we've made it even better by sprinkling, fertilizing, growing all sorts of weird, exotic European shrubs, And so very slowly we've started to see more of our wildlife urbanize. And, hence the conflicts.
Well, if I may share a story, we're up against a break, actually, but I will tell you this. I had a mule deer come pay a visit to my house not long ago. We had a geranium up on a pot about 8 steps up. You know where I live. I have 8 steps up, wooden steps up to my front door, and there was a pot there with a big geranium on it. Well, I heard somebody clomping up the steps. Clomp, 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 clomp. I was expecting the doorbell to ring. Didn't ring, so I looked out just in time to see the ass end of a mule deer walking down the stairs after he had completely consumed my geranium with no thank you note at all. So I'm going, jeez. So anyway, we'll talk more about that. And Jamie Jonkel joining us here this morning. 721-1290 is our number. We're going to come right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. We got rid of the ghosts in the machine, thank heavens. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Jamie Jonkel joining us from Montana Fish, Wildlife and Park.
Yeah, right before the break, we were talking about urbanized animals. Specifically, we were talking about deer and mountain lions. But it seems to me that we do, as the public, we get really concerned when there's an urbanized bear or an urbanized mountain lion. But really, I mean, a lot of the problem there is urbanized deer, right? So should we be taking extra precautions to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, the best thing we can do, especially as a whole, are the people that are living on the edges, the folks that are right against that urban interface, right against the mountain, right against the creek, right against the river. If we can get folks living in those sites to keep a really, really clean ship, not have bird feeders swinging, not have their garbage out, not leaving cat food on the back porch, have a truckload of rotting garbage. That's where the bad habits are learned, at least with bears and lions. One fella living on the edge with 5 salt licks and 20 bird feeders can really teach a lot of different bears and a lot of different lions that,
right,
hey, come on into town. So on that urban edge, if we can get folks running a real tight ship, keeping it clean, a lot of our problems might go away. The deer, there's no way to keep them from coming in. That green grass.
Bam.
If there could
I do it every hunting season. It's a really easy way to take care of a deer.
Yeah, trying to hunt in an urban setting, though, is tough.
Yeah?
It's really tough. You can try some bow hunting, but, whenever you bring hunting into a sort of a community area, that's when the politics start. A lot of folks don't care for hunting. Some love hunting.
Well, where I live, up in the Miller Creek area, there's a group of people who consider the deer to be iconic pets, if you will, and we'll plant things specifically to bring the deer because they're so pretty, and it's just wildlife, and they're gamboling all through my yard. Look at the deer are gamboling, and then they're eating all my expensive flowers that I paid hundreds of dollars to Karis, to plant. So for those of us who are absolutely sick of the urban deer, is there anything we can do besides building a 10-foot fence?
Well, you hit it right on the nail head there. Some of my biggest headaches come from people that love wildlife to death.
Right.
They love them so much that they teach them all these bad habits. They encourage them to come in and start hanging around. And next thing you know, you've got a deer that's also going over the neighbors,
right,
who doesn't like deer eating on his flowers. And it opens up a huge can of worms. Really, on these urban fringes, the only way you can get around it is by planting, native species that aren't so desirable to deer, or, like you said, put up a good fence.
Oh, wow. Interesting. When we're talking about mountain lions and bears, I have never seen a mountain lion in town my entire life. In fact, I've only seen one mountain lion in the wild in Montana once. They're kind of hard to spot if you don't have dogs or know what you're really looking for. And bears, I've only seen black bears and the rattlesnake, but where, if we were to look at a map of Missoula, where do you see mountain lions and bears coming into town?
Well, again, if you take that little spin in the middle of the valley, just about every direction.
Really?
There are lions, there are bears, there are coyotes, there are everything.
Fox.
It's a wild chunk of country.
Yeah.
And wolves. You told me that you had wolf reportings in Missoula.
Yeah. I mean, there's no secret about that. There's packs, that move around on the edges of the valley too. You bet. Yeah, it's neat. I mean, it's a wild area. In the winter months, I mean, we've got multiple elk herds, lots of deer herds, wintering here, and we got the predators too. They're everywhere. We should be very happy because Missoula is still extremely wild. I mean, we've got a very whole ecosystem here. And just the fact that we live in the middle of it kind of complicates things further.
Okay, so for those of us who like to go out and hike, go on the Kim Williams Trail or whatever, and we just are wandering out there, perhaps with our dog or with the kids or whatever, what can we do to keep ourselves safe?
Well, my little girl's been carrying cans of bear spray ever since she was about 4 or 5. And I really encourage everyone to have a can, on their body, not just for bears and lions. I mean, some strange fella walks up to you, you can always have that security having your bear spray. A cow moose angry that you've gotten too close to her calf, a cow elk. A doe deer, that bear spray is pretty darn handy. So, I don't get totally fearful when I'm out there, but I'm always ready. It's just like crossing the street. You look both ways,
Are you carrying bear spray now?
I left it out in the truck.
I don't think he's going to have much problem with urban radio people. So
it saved my life once. I definitely take bear spray out with me. So
we're going to take a break. We have Catherine and Sue both wanting to visit with you. Jamie, what? Oh, we want to give away some coffee. Yeah, go ahead.
Some free coffee. We've got the Rocket Coffee giveaway going on right now. And don't forget, if you show up at the Rocket Coffee stand right up until the Dave Chappelle show, every week they're going to be giving out 2 tickets to one of the lucky customers there. But right now, you get your free coffee, toast, and your choice of spread by calling 721-1290. You don't have to tackle a bear or wrestle a mountain lion. Just call 721-1290.
We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Our guest in studio, Jamie Jonkel with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We're talking bears and lions and tigers and bears.
Oh, my.
Thank you. All right. Let's get to the phone. And who's up first? This is Catherine. Catherine, you're back. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I wanted to ask your guest if he gets any calls about red-tailed hawks or eagles, small dogs and cats outside without supervision. Could be a problem.
We do get a lot of calls about birds of prey, especially the big ones that do take cats and little dogs. The ones you got to worry about are, the big birds like a golden eagle or bald eagle. Your smaller birds of prey, not a big issue. But yeah, we get quite a few calls.
Because I go up the rattlesnake on the west side, and the birds of prey are out there gliding along, and I have little dogs, and I've seen them kind of eyeing them occasionally, so I always keep them close. But I just wanted to bring that up.
It's awful hard to pick up a mastiff.
Yeah, that's true, but it's not hard to pick up a dachshund.
A lot of chickens get picked up.
Yeah,
they're more vulnerable than your little dogs and cats.
Especially when you're around hovering to protect them.
Yes, that's true.
All right. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call. Sue, good morning. You're on Talkback with Jamie Jonkel. Hi.
Well, good morning, Peter. I feel your pain about your flowers because the same thing happened to us several years ago.
I can't tell you how much money I've wasted buying flowers and planting them.
It makes me sick.
Yeah.
They just come right up on your patio. But I live in an area where we literally have herds of deer across the street, and there's a big vacant lot across the street from our house, and I've counted in about 15 at a time. And in Helena, I know they have an urban hunt, and I don't know why we can't. They donate the meat to the food bank, and I don't know why we can't do something like that.
Sue, I love you. That's exactly what I was about to propose.
Yeah, the city fathers don't seem to want to get serious about this issue, and they really need to because, literally where we live, and I know, over in your area, Peter, I know there are herds of them, and it's just, and they're not very fat, they're real skinny, so they're not, I don't know if they've really figured out that people are onto them.
Well, the ones in my area are fat, and the thing that troubles me is, I have a 2-year-old, just turned 2, a child that plays outside regularly, throws a basketball hoop out, plays outside, and the deer are just not afraid of anything. I can get up there, I could touch the deer almost, trying to get them, away from my lawn. And
they must be muleys.
Yeah, they're mule deer mostly.
Yeah.
There's whitetails too, but the bigger herds are usually mule deer, and I guess I'm afraid my kid might get trampled someday.
Well, there's a new city council election coming up, and maybe that should be an issue that is on the front burner as an urban hunt, because I think there's a lot of positive things that could come from that.
Let's ask our guest about that. Jamie, what do you think?
Well, Sue, there's an urban wildlife committee that's been in session now for a couple of years. I encourage you to get involved with that. Mayor Engen sits on that. A lot of the city council members sit on that. It can get controversial. It's like not quite the same, but I don't know if you've paid attention to some of the issues with weeds and the use of herbicides in and around the Missoula area. It's gotten complicated. And the urban deer situation and how to control those herds, it'll be an interesting process.
Now, let me ask you this. I'm sure that you keep in touch with the folks in Helena they have an urban deer hunt. Now, is this the average citizen do you get a hunting license, or do you depend on Fish, Wildlife, and Park professional hunters to go and take care of these deer so that people don't get hurt?
I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's a very highly managed process.
It's done by the city. Yeah, it's not done by. It's not people out there with the broadhead.
They actually bait them in, and then remove them, and then.
It wouldn't be hard to hunt them. Frankly, I could just put some grass in a cage and catch one at my house.
Yeah, hunting in urban settings, especially in a city like Missoula, can be pretty confusing and complicated for the managers, the city. Some people love to hunt, some people hate to hunt.
Some people want to provide sex education to the deer to try to control. I know it sounds silly, but try to perform some sort of way to neuter or.
We actually had that story last year. Remember, there was basically they wanted to go out and neuter all the deer.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah.
Well, it sounds nice on paper, but it's very, very, very expensive. And
that was snippets of
not
tip.
Very realistic either.
I want to ask you about the number of bear and mountain lion sightings per week. Just give us a regular. How many of these complaint calls do you get in every week?
Well, if you want to keep tabs on it yourself, one of the best places to go is our website, MissoulaBears.org. We've got a really good site there where folks can report, any lion or bear they see. They can also report any neighbors that might happen to be, putting out 20 salt licks or have 40 bird feeders swinging or have a truckload of garbage.
Sounds like we're in Eastern Germany during the Cold War.
Usually when we have bear or lion problems in an urban setting, I can pretty much point my finger over at one or two houses that are doing just about everything to suck them in the first place.
Really?
And so getting that kind of information where we can do a drive-by and just see how many bear or how many lion or how many deer are coming into that place really gives us a tool.
Are there any regulations in place, or?
Oh yeah, Missoula's very progressive there. We've
highly regulated.
Yeah, we've got it's illegal to feed wildlife in the Missoula city limits. We've got a really good garbage ordinance. We've got a bear buffer zone where anyone living in that bear buffer zone has to keep their garbage contained. South Hills, Rattlesnake, O'Brien Creek, some of the river bottom areas are within the bear buffer zone. And if you live in those areas, you got to contain your garbage. You can't leave it out all week. It's a no-brainer. Most folks think, well, why are these bears coming in? Well, when you leave your garbage out all week with a bunch of potato salad rotting in it.
Yeah, in Missoula, if you have deer in your yard, you need to have a bike rack just so they can park their bikes if they need to. So we're super progressive.
Well, I do know that I go to Mac Church up on Foss Court there with the copper top, and the guy that helps to caretake for the place, his name is Jerry. He's a good friend of mine. He says he goes up there every Thursday morning to make sure that the church's garbage, that's their garbage day. He actually times putting it out within just a few minutes of the time the truck gets there, because when he rolls in, he sees bears knocking down garbage cans all over Foss Court looking for garbage, and they've been sitting there all night.
Yes, and all that area is in the buffer zone, and right now we've got 2 or 3 complexes that have some pretty major brimming dumpsters up there that we're working with. We've given them their written warnings. Pretty soon they'll probably be getting some tickets.
Yeah.
Pumpkin patch, remember that
Yes.
incident? The old Halloween pumpkin patch, they had the deer come in and a bear come in, eat all their pumpkins. So they now have a good electric fence around the pumpkin patch.
We're going to come right back. 721-1290. You have a question for Jamie Jonkel about lions and tigers, or I'm sorry, lions and bears, or tigers.
He might know something.
Don't really have very many tigers around here. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us here on Talkback. It's Monday, June the 1st, 2015, and in my book, June 1st means first day of summer. I know the calendar doesn't really
It's
say
actually
that.
June 5th. That's my birthday on the first day of summer.
John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Jamie Jonkel joining us from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
We have a question, call in from Tracy. He wants to know, what is bringing the mule deer down here? Isn't their natural habitat up higher in elevation? And I don't know. If you could go off on that, that'd be great.
Well, a good herd to talk about would be that mule deer herd between Miller Creek and Patty Canyon. That's a beautiful chunk of country, a good winter range, and all the mule deer come out of that Rock Creek country and all that Miller Creek country in winter right there. And over time, more and more of those does have slipped down a little further, especially in the spring when the green up occurs. They come right down to the valley floor in the spring when the green up is on. And that's where they learn that, hey, caraganda tastes pretty good. hey, clover, dandelions, this is good stuff. Most of our urban deer, if you compare their weights to our wild mountain deer, I mean, amazing. And the number of fawns they have, twins, amazing. So good habitat brings in wildlife.
They'll go where the food is.
They go to where the good food is.
Right.
And sadly, with all of our urbanization on top of good habitat, we've enhanced it tremendously and turned it into ice cream.
When I was a young boy, I remember there was another boy that had been killed by a mountain lion. I think you had mentioned it was up by Evero. I don't remember where at the time. But I guess my big question was, how many encounters between humans and these large carnivores have there been in the last 30 years? It doesn't seem to happen that frequently in Missoula.
Yeah, that was a sad incident. We had one additional one where a young boy was attacked by a lion up in Marshall Creek. Actual attacks are very, very rare, but encounters are common. I mean, I get reports almost 2 or 3 a week of people, hiking, mountain biking, walking their dogs, running into lions, seeing lions at close distances. So it's very common for people to run into lions. In fact, people right now probably walking around the Missoula area, walking right past lions, sitting on a white-tailed deer kill, and don't even know it's there. So they have really learned to move in and out of humidity and take advantage of all these deer and not really be seen that often.
Yeah,
So,
like the ninjas of nature.
yeah, they're just they're using the fringes where all those deer are. And,
Ninjas in the fringes.
So let me ask you this: when you talk to people who like to spend a lot of time outdoors, aside from the bear spray, and that's so. If you are confronted by a mountain lion or a bear of some sort, and you don't have any sort of protection like a gun or bear spray, what do we do?
Well, the biggest thing is keeping your eyes peeled for danger. It's just like when you're in New York City, you don't walk down some dark alley at 3 a.m.
Right.
You see a lot of folks jogging 5 a.m. before work with earphones on, spandex, ghosting around through the woods on these little tiny trails, bike trails and stuff. Right at the dawn hours, when the deer are really moving and the lions are hunting, So just adapting your own behavior so you're not mimicking a
Right.
prey species like a deer really helps. But the big thing is just, keeping your eyes peeled, not blundering into a carcass with a female bear and 2 cubs sitting on it, Being aware of your surroundings really keeps you out of trouble, and just really understanding what sign looks like, and what these animals' behaviors are like. That'll keep you out of danger. And then just the more you learn about these wildlife the less fearful you become of them.
Now, what about the deal is make yourself as big as possible? Is that a wives' tale or what?
No. Lions are real easy to buffalo. Like, they're the hunters of the woods, of the mountains, and everything sponges off them. Coyotes are trying to push them off their kills all the time. 2 coyotes can push an adult male off of a kill. So if you act big and aggressive and stomp your feet and look big, you can buffalo a lion pretty easily.
What's the best sound to make when you're trying to buffalo a lion?
Well, you don't want to mew or scream like a baby. You want to keep calm and talk like you do with a horse. Just people that are around horses know what to do. You just go ooh, let them know you're human. You sure don't want to squeal or start screaming or run or turn your back on a lion. I mean, that's not the thing to do.
Okay, we're going to come right back. 721-1290. Ray, we're going to get your call here in just a moment. Jamie Jonkel joining us here in studio with Montana Fish and Wildlife and Park, getting some good advice here, and we'd love to have your calls and questions. 721-1290. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. Jamie Jonkel joining us here on Talkback, sharing his expertise and his years of experience. Go ahead.
We got a comment from Matt. He says, we have a huge herd of whitetail deer in Missoula from the university campus up Patty Creek to right in downtown in Bonner Park. And where you have deer, you will have mountain lions.
That makes sense?
Yeah. And that's why we really push folks that have salt licks to get rid of them. It's nice to see deer, but if you have a salt lick so you can see deer, moose, or elk, you're sucking those predators in too. You're creating game trails into your backyard and game trails into other neighbors' backyards. And same with turkeys. Wild turkeys are hunted a lot by lions, coyotes, and other predators. And so if you're feeding turkeys, you're sucking in predators too. So we encourage folks to not do that.
In the Miller Creek area, there's a red fox den right outside Linda Vista Golf Course. Okay, there are. I live kind of off the road. I was going to work. I go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I see all sorts of wildlife. Waddling down my 150-foot driveway were 2 fat little raccoons, and then we found some skunks up on the hill. They're also predators. So, I mean, there are predators all over the place that don't necessarily fit into the bear and mountain lion category, right?
Oh, yeah. The fact that we have these beautiful riparian areas in our valley floor, I mean, you get up in the air and look down on Kelly Island. It's a green jungle of wildness and braids of rivers and wonderful wildlife habitat. And as a result, we have a lot of wildlife just trying to come up and down the river systems that get hung up in town. Some of them get hung up and decide to live here. Others just get lost in humanity, we call it.
By the way, I think you can bow hunt on Kelly Island.
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you bet there's a lot of folks that bow hunt.
Sissies like me who don't have time to get very far out of town know about these places.
Let's get Ray on the line. Ray, you're on with Jamie Jonkel. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Jonkel. How serious? I was reading somewhere that black bears tend to be a lot more predatory when they're after people.
Well, a lot of that information comes from looking at black bear attacks on humans and grizzly bear attacks on humans. Mm-hmm. Grizzly bears are usually it's more of a defensive thing involving females, with young, and with the black bears they have had some predatory attacks, by these sort of young adult males. Yeah. Rare, but ever so often someone out hunting will have an encounter with a black bear that's just not quite right. In these sort of community areas, these bears that get really used to coming in for garbage and bird feeders, all of a sudden they get real comfortable around, people and living in amongst people. That's the situation we want to try to avoid, and that's why we're always beating that drum about, no garbage. No
do they treat garbage like a kill?
Thanks, Ray.
Where they're defensive about it and kind of guard it?
Not really. It's just like this, it's like a source of food on the landscape that's unbelievable. You go down the Bitterroot and you're a bear. I mean, every 300 yards you come to a house and they've got a garbage sitting out and they got bird feeders swinging it. So it's more like just, hey, I'll eat a dandelion, now I'll tip a garbage can.
Saran-wrapped huckleberry bush.
You know, once in a while, you know, like someone will have, you know, a dumpster, you know, just full of garbage, and a bear will finally get his turn because they got 5 or 6 bears in the dumpster. You know, that bear has been running off other bears, and there you might have, you know, some ground thumping and stuff. But it's not rocket science. You just you can't have garbage sitting out in the mountains or in wild areas. It's like hanging money on trees.
Well, not only is I mean, the garbage is bad for the bear, right? I mean, aren't they much better eating their own natural foods or what?
Well, you know, a bear eating garbage, again, just like a deer eating on a green lawn, they get big. The nutrition that they get from
they probably have a pretty good immune system.
Yeah. I mean, the food that they want in our garbage cans is wonderful food.
Your Taco Bell leftovers aren't going to phase them.
So it's better for them not to learn that, because once they do, they develop the bad habits, and then sadly, you know, we have to manage them.
You were mentioning money hanging on trees. Like literally, when I go up the Rattlesnake, I see all these fruit trees that people grow, and they're not harvesting their apples. And that's when I see black bears, is when the apples start falling. They're all over the floor. And are there rules against that? I mean, are you required to harvest your fruit trees?
You know, you aren't unless you are attracting predators. So if you've got an orchard that you're not picking, and all of a sudden it is sucking in the 20 to 30 bears, whatever, that are up on the ridge lines coming in every fall, there, you know, that person is sort of creating an issue. And in an extreme situation, you know, perhaps they could get a ticket if they just flat refuse to ever get rid of their apples. But yeah, apples and fruit are the driving force here in the Missoula Valley. I mean, you know, if you're a bear, can you imagine, you know, an apple, a Wolf River apple compared to a huckleberry or a chokecherry? I mean, 10 times the size. I mean, full of sugar. It's like a gift from heaven.
Yum.
You know, and so, yeah, every fall they come down for our hawthorn and our wild plums, our serviceberry, our chokecherry. But when they discover the fruit, the domestic fruits, I mean, it's like they literally, like, I just went to heaven. And they never forget that. So if you have fruit trees, you are going to have bears coming in to feed on those fruit trees.
Okay, let's get Tabitha on the line. Tabitha, you're on with Jamie Jonkel. Go ahead.
Hi. I moved here 3 years ago, and I was really surprised by all the urban deer. And when I talked to my brother back in Cleveland, Ohio about it, he mentioned that one of their suburbs had opened archery season for 3 years to take care of their deer population. And I guess, I don't know if they did special training with the archers, but you had to put in for special tags. Like, have Missoula considered that?
Yeah, we already have that in place. We've got a wonderful hunting season. It's called Area 260. And if you're a bow hunter, I mean, Missoula is a place to live. I mean, you've got a wonderful bow hunting season that lasts from September right in through December. So you can kill up to 4 or 5 deer and keep your freezer full. So yeah, we've got a very liberal bow season.
All right. We're going to take one more break. We have a 60-second timeout, and we have Jamie Jonkel with us for about another 8 minutes. If you have a question or a comment, maybe you've got a story you'd like to share, 721-1290. We'll be right back. Trust me, I don't think there's anything that he hasn't heard yet. So we're going to come right back. Stay with us. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. John King over there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us is Jamie Jonkel with the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. He's the predator specialist, bears and mountain lions, things like that.
And he's encouraged me to get back into bow hunting.
Tell us about this special district that goes on that a lot of folks may not know about archery hunting.
Well, yeah. You know, one of the few ways that Fish, Wildlife, and Parks can manage deer in urban settings is through these archery seasons. You know, 284, 290, 260 are all good examples here in Region 2, where you have very liberal bow hunting seasons that go through, you know, portions of the winter months. You know, like the Missoula area here, 260 takes in the whole Bitterroot River bottoms all the way to the river junction to the 9 Mile, and very liberal hunting seasons through December, I believe, the January 1st. So if you like to bow hunt, I mean, yeah, there's lots of opportunities.
So what does it take? How many tags are you allowed?
You know, it changes year by year, but I believe we're still at 4, maybe 5 tags for 260.
Okay. Wow. Let's get back to the phone. And Charlie, you're on Talkback with Jamie Jonkel. Go ahead.
Hey, Jamie. I'd like to know
I know that there's such a thing as harassing game, but if you use dum-dums and a paintball, is that legal to keep the deer off your property?
It is. You just have to make sure, like a lot of folks will use an aversive conditioning technique like a blunt or whatever on a bow and will actually, kill the animal. We at Fish and Game will actually occasionally check out, firecrackers and that kind of thing for people that are having a big hazing issue, or we've got those propane guns too, for ranchers and small property owners that have, herd of elk coming in. So yeah, that works well. You just don't want to, slip something between the ribs.
I can tell my neighbor that I'm 5 points ahead of him. He uses orange paint, I use green.
Yeah, you can actually buy those dummy paintballs that are just kind of a hard rubber that will create quite a thump.
No, I like this color.
You got to keep score somehow. So
thanks for the call, Charlie.
Now, as you were mentioning, so is it legal to shoot a bear that's on your property with a blunt, like a blunt arrow tip, or not? You kind of said both things, it seemed to me.
If we have a bear coming into a property that's just right on the edge of learning some bad behaviors, if we cannot aversive condition it with, let's say, some rubber buckshot or some firecrackers ourselves, once in a while we will give that homeowner, a rubber a load to hit that bear in the hind end. Sometimes you can change the behavior of a bear that's just starting. Like these folks living on the fringes that have a bird feeder, and they see the bear come in the first time. If we can catch it the next night and thump them, sometimes we can teach them not to come in again. But it's a tough one.
We got a post on Facebook for you from Jeannie. She says, we have a paper route in the Rattlesnake. At one point, we were seeing bears almost every day. The bear appearances seemed to be mostly on garbage days. I believe, thanks to Jamie Jonkel, that we rarely see bears now. People are waiting to put out their garbage until the morning. So,
yeah, I have to give the Rattlesnake Valley a real big pat on the back. And MissoulaBears.org and then the Rattlesnake Watershed Work Group have just done some great things up there. So has the Pease Farm. We went from having, in the fall, 30 bears work in the valley for garbage to now very, very few bears work in the valley for garbage. And I attribute that to a couple things. The ordinance really, really helped. The bear buffer zone really, really helped. But finally, people are just figuring it out. And neighbors are teaching new neighbors that, hey, if you leave your garbage out all week, you're going to start up a new bear. Or, hey, if you keep that bird feeder up and keep sprinkling corn all over the place for those deer, man, you're going to teach these wildlife some bad habits. So,
how many bears and mountain lions have you had to take out of the Missoula Valley because they became urbanized?
Oh, sadly, over the years, we've had to take quite a few out. It seems like in the Missoula area, just about every year, we get one or two bears that just, get so bad. The minute they start coming up on porches and testing doors or peeling garage doors off or opening up kitchen doors, we flat remove them. For the bears that are just learning those habits, on the very first stages, we do our very best to teach them not to do it again.
So do you have like a scale? Like, okay, this guy ripped the front door off, so he's out of here.
Oh, yeah. If we have a bear that's entering houses or damaging houses, we don't give them a second chance.
Now, do you work with, is it Bob Wiesner?
Yeah, Bob and I work together all the time.
You do? Okay.
He was my high school gym teacher.
Because I did an interview with him, and he sent me pictures of his dogs, and some of the most beautiful pictures of mountain lions I've ever seen, but came from his camera.
Oh, so, yeah. And Bob's just a wonderful houndsman, wonderful lion hunter, and he saves a lot of lions by doing some pushes, non-lethal pushes, just pushing the lion out away from where the person is feeding the turkeys, that kind of thing. But sadly, we have to take a few lions out, too.
Do these lions actually get into people's pets very frequently?
I hate to say it, the little tiny dogs, the Pomeranians and stuff, anything that kind of looks like a yellow belly marmot is you know, a smaller dog moving around and yipping and yapping is a
Yeah.
lot more vulnerable than a larger dog. And if you think about it, there's so many feral cats now. You know, there are feral cats everywhere in western Montana. You go out at night with a spotlight, and that's all you see is feral cats. And so cats have become part of the prey base for a lot of these predators, you know, and they don't know the difference between a wild cat and a pet.
I knew I liked mountain lions for something.
John, you're not endearing yourself to our. Okay, now if folks want to
Sorry,
get more
cat
information
lovers.
about this, we have a minute left in the show. How do they contact you? You said MissoulaBears.org is one thing, right?
Yeah, I guess write down MissoulaBears.org and start paying attention to that website. You can communicate with me one-on-one there through email, and then lots of good information on there as well.
You bet. Just be careful, use your head, and you'll stay away from those critters, right?
Yeah, keep a clean can.
Good deal.
Don't leave your garbage out or your bird feeders up.
Jamie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And you must have a heck of a fun job, all I can say. All right, that's going to do it for Talkback today. We sure appreciate you being with us this morning, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Let's see what's going on tomorrow's fabulous radio program. Not sure, Rob. John's on the phone. So anyway, who's coming up tomorrow?
Okay, yeah, really interesting lady. She works with police departments all throughout the state on alternatives to prison.
Okay.
New technologies.
We will have her on, and hope to have you as well on Talkback. Stay with us. Have a great day.